Good morning. It is Sunday, April 19th, 8 o'clock a.m. This is the final race day of Charleston Race Week 2026. It's been great to be partnered with this event and work with Greg Fisher. Greg, I know you and I we've had some pretty interesting discussions before and during the race. And today would be the last day. We've got some it's an interesting weather pattern today with a cold front coming in. Cold front will be falling apart as it does. But what does that mean for the winds? And we'll get into that in just a second. Real quick, myself, Greg Fisher, again with Sailing Inc., powered by Evolution Sales. Tide information today, just so everyone knows, the race starts at 11 o'clock. We will be in a slack tide at that point, 10:51, and then max ebb is at 2:47. So most races will be wrapping up by 2 o'clock. There should be plenty of wind out there on the course to get these done in time. And with that said, I'm not going to go through any more of the slide deck. Just go ahead and dive right into the surface map to show you what's going to happen today. We have this cold front that is just lee side of the Appalachians and starting to quickly go down slope towards the coast. This will sweep through based on a ridge over Texas, or what we would call an Arklatex, so Arkansas, Louisiana, Texas high. And behind this front, we're going to see a northwest flow pushing in. So the first thing we're going to see is a little bit of a bend in the wind with westerly winds really pushing in behind it and through the front. As the front falls apart or fizzles, those winds tend to just bite right on through it, right? And so the convergent flow that's out ahead of it tends to not be as strong, which is why we're only seeing about 7 or 8 knots out there, 9 knots in some places from the southwest. And as time goes on, this will be more of a gradual turn. We have this little inland trough or lee side trough right here from the coast that's going to be also impacting the wind. So we're going to see this westerly flow, or zonal flow, we call it, biting through the front towards the coast in time. And by the race start, we'll likely see 270 and then veering as time goes on. So there's going to be a little bit of a timing factor there. We look at visible satellite, we see the front moving in from the west. Of course, the placement of this front has it right about here, but I think it's a little back in the middle of where these showers are. So the timing of this could be pushed out. Instead of 1 o'clock, might be more like 2 o'clock for the front actually passes through. But like I said, there's a lot of dry air out ahead of it, and then this zonal flow will be out pushing through and eventually veering in from the northwest around that ridge. So that's kind of the broader scope of everything. If we look at Sailflow, right now we're sitting just barely southwest at about, what's the degrees here? Sitting at 229 degrees. So Greg, you and I talked a minute ago, it was 225, so we're already seeing it veer to 229. I think we'll continue to see it veer all the way over towards 270 by the race start. I wanted to quickly recap yesterday. Boy, I tell you, the sea breeze each day during this race event has been really tricky with the lulling out because the sea breeze has been pinned to the coast. And yesterday it took a little while. I know I was talking to Taryn about race start times and when that sea breeze was going to fill in. So it did end up cooperating right around 1 o'clock, which is great. Today's pattern is different because we already have wind built in place on that convergent flow, and I think we're going to keep that wind right on through the race start, at least where it is right now. So we're in that 7 to 11 knot range. It shoots folly, maybe a little bit more at Fort Sumter. You got to remember Fort Sumter is a little high up in elevation, so you're probably getting an extra knot or so just based on the height bias on that one. Shoots folly is a little more realistic, closer to the surface of the water, and not so high up on that range tower. It's a little bit lower on a different range tower, but we'll carry that 7 to 11 knot range. Like I said, 229 right now, going to be veering over. A lot of model agreement with this. In fact, I looked at the pro forecast with my colleague Hank Pomerantz. He was on the pro forecast for today, and we both agree that right around the race start time, we'd be looking at a full 270. The H triple R is on board. There could be some bit of a west southwest element or a west northwest element, so be ready for some oscillations between 250, maybe 290 in that range. So you got about a 40-degree range of oscillation to build into that forecast. So I know it's going to be tough for the committee in placing the marks out there, but I think by this time we'll have that zonal flow built in. We'll keep about an 8 to 12 knot range. I think as we start to see a more of a veer with that northerly element biting in, we'll see the winds picking up, maybe overperforming from what these models say. So I'm calling for, by the race start time, we see 8 to 12 just before the call, 9 to 13 as we get into that 11:30, 12 o'clock range, and we start to go up, 10 to 14 by noon. And then by 1 o'clock, when you start to see the clouds moving over. So I'll go ahead and just show the model guidance for the rain. Here's 8 o'clock, 9, 10, about 12. 12:30 is when we start to see the clouds thicken from the west, right? So we see clear skies out there, mostly sunny skies out there right now. But when you start to see the cloud line moving in as things thicken up, that's when you're going to probably start to see that wind veering towards the northwest in time. By 1:30 is where the timing is for this. By 2 o'clock, a lot of these clouds have already moved out. Maybe some residual cloud debris, maybe some cumulus, but most of that rain, if any at all, I don't think we'll see any storms. We'll probably just see some, maybe a few showers if anything makes it to the ground at all, because the air is so dry that it's moving into. But that's going to be the case for today. I'll go ahead and cover the offshore course for the wave heights for the pursuits. And so we got a swell direction mainly from the southeast with waves about 3 feet because of some moderate winds that were about 15 knots out there earlier. So you've got a southeast primary swell at about 2 to 3 feet, and then you have an overcutting westerly flow that's going to be building in over that. So it could be a little bit rough out there. I think the swell period 10.2, the combined lowering of that down to about 7 seconds. So I would prepare for a little bit of choppiness out there. Based on that, it won't be a true swell from the southeast. But the wind out there is not bad. Our last run, these are only coming in about hourly. 708, still holding 13 knots at Capers near shore buoy. So a little bit more wind out on the outside for the offshore series. But as we get inside, we're still sitting at right around 8 knots. And that should build as we get towards the race start time. So I'm anticipating 9 to 13 by 11, 10 to 14 by 12. And then we start seeing some pretty gusty winds 1, 2 o'clock. When we see the turn, we're looking at 13 to 17 knots. I'm going to go a little bit higher on that. You may see some gusts to 20 as a couple of these high resolution models are alluding to around 1, 2 o'clock. So just be ready for some gusty winds out there on the turn. But the good thing is we don't anticipate any severe weather. And that wind also will probably help you get back to the dock a little faster too. But either way, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Greg. Greg, what are your thoughts here as we look at this challenging wind direction veering today?
Well, I think it's interesting. When we were talking earlier, Shea, you pointed out you thought the march to the right was going to be not like a fast, speedy, going to happen over 20 minutes kind of thing if a front came through, but more of a gradual, steady, just enough to make it, like you pointed out, tricky for the race committees. But that will make the choice of when you avoid the current or when you get to the right side to take advantage of the shift, a tricky decision to make.
Yeah, good points there. I mean, yeah, the pressure steadily to the right on an ebb, that's going to make for some interesting jibes out there for today. So I really hope everyone takes that to their advantage on the course. But I think with that said, we'll sign off on that. I think we've covered everything as far as the ebb. And again, the water column is only about 5.4 feet for today, or maybe 5.5. So more normalized for the ebb for today. So that's why the tide table or the tides and currents only had about 2.49 knots. So either way, if you've been out there last 3 days, it's not going to be too much different. You just won't be getting into the max ebb. It'll just be just before that. But with that said, it's been a pleasure to work with you, Greg, as always. And hope to see you soon. And a pleasure to be partnered with the Charleston Race Week. And everybody have a good day out there. Godspeed, be safe, and have fun no matter what. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Shea.
Thank you.